From the PEP Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are covering at this hour. President Donald Trump's administration violated federal law in the use of National Guard troops during Southern California immigration enforcement operations and accompanying protests, a federal judge ruled on Tuesday. Judge Charles Breyer in San Francisco did not require the remaining troops to be withdrawn, however. He set his order to go into effect on Friday. The order comes after California sued, saying the troops sent to Los Angeles over the summer were violating a law that prohibits military enforcement of domestic laws. Lawyers for Trump's Republican administration have argued the Posse Comitatus Act doesn't apply because the troops were protecting federal officers, not enforcing laws. They say the troops were mobilized under an authority that allows the president to deploy them. The judge's decision comes as Trump has discussed National Guard deployments in Democratic-led cities like Chicago, Baltimore, and New York. He has already deployed the Guard as part of his unprecedented law enforcement takeover in Washington, where he has direct legal control. Survivors of abuse from Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, putting pressure on Congress to take action to force more disclosure of the evidence in the case. A group of both Republicans and Democrats on the House Oversight Committee will meet with survivors today, this afternoon. The committee has been conducting an inquiry into how the Justice Department handled Epstein, who died in a New York jail cell in 2019 as he faced sex trafficking charges. Several survivors are also expected to join a rally on Wednesday, as well as a news conference with lawmakers who are pushing for legislation that would force the Trump administration to release the case files. The most urgent task for Congress is to avoid a government shutdown on September 30th when federal funding runs out. Just how Republicans and Democrats will be able to agree on this remains unclear. Congress will have to pass a short-term spending measure to keep the government funded for a few weeks or months while they try to finish the full-year package. But Republicans will need Democratic votes to pass an extension, and Democrats will want significant concessions. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer's vote with Republicans to avoid a shutdown in March prompted furious backlash within his party. Complicating the negotiations, Republicans rescinded about $9 billion in foreign aid and public broadcasting funds, and Trump notified Congress that he will block $4.9 billion in congressionally approved foreign aid. Trump is rooting for a shutdown, Senator Chris Murphy, the Democrat from Connecticut, posted on social media Friday. Senators are returning to Washington, right where they left off in early August, fighting over Trump's nominees. Exasperated, Republicans fled for the month after making little headway as Senate Democrats forced delays in confirmations, angering Trump as many of his administration's positions remain unfilled. Republican leaders called it quits after a rare Saturday session that ended with a breakdown in bipartisan negotiations and Trump posting on social media that Chuck Schumer could, quote, go to hell. Republicans now say they're ready to try and change Senate rules to get around the Democratic delays and are expected to spend the next several weeks discussing how that might work. And speaking of Senator Chuck Schumer, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says Democrats are willing to work in a bipartisan way to avoid a government shutdown when the fiscal year ends on September 30th. Republicans will need votes from both parties to pass a short-term funding measure while they finish the full package of spending bills, and Democrats will want some concessions to agree. Schumer received blowback from his party, as we mentioned earlier, in March when he voted with Republicans to keep the government open. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, however, voted against that short-term spending measure, arguing that Republicans had cut Democrats out. Schumer's letter to colleagues Tuesday morning said he and Jeffries are aligned and that Senate Republicans must decide stand up for the legislative branch or enable Trump's slide toward authoritarianism. That's the news at this hour. We are aware that President Trump will be making a special announcement this afternoon at 2. As soon as that information becomes available, we will be sharing it on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned to PEP Radio at 5 p.m. today. We have the On Auschwitz podcast at its new day and time, Tuesdays at 5. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.